Couldn't keep my eyes open. Yo, what's going on? It's someone that's no one, and welcome back to today's report. Today's report is by Zyprexa off ETHEREUM. When this happened, 2004. The drug used, Olanzapine, at a dose of 10 milligrams. The route of administration, orally. Gender, male. Weight, 145 pounds. And the setting, first at home, then out in public. So here we are with a report to introduce Olanzapine, a substance that was brought up in a report in combination with other substances. So here we are to get an idea of how Olanzapine is on its own. And if you don't know anything about this substance, don't worry, we'll have a decent breakdown of it at the end. This report is of a strong dose, and in result, the user has a very difficult experience, especially considering he tries to go out in public off of it. I'm sure all of you will find this one interesting, so without further ado, let's dive right into this. I might not have been in the right mindset for this experience, nor the right setting. I had just spent the last night on caffeine, ginger root, and 150 milligrams of phenylpropanolamine. Needless to say, I was kind of depressed, tired, and ready for something to take the edge off of the day. As soon as I awoke, I was yelled at and reminded of all the laundry I had to complete from a previous campout the week before. Around noon, I dosed 4 2.5 milligrams of Olanzapine. 45 minutes later, I started to feel different and mellowed out. I felt relaxed, but sort of confused in my movements. Around 1:15, I went to the laundromat. As I sat down, I realized that I still needed to pick up some squash, so I ventured down to the grocery store. Not even 5 minutes after arriving at the store, my hands were shaking. It was definitely a lot harder to focus on objects. I was suddenly too confused to find what I needed and eventually bought the wrong things. I had to break a deuce into $10 so I could get more change at the laundromat. As I arrived home, my mouth was bone dry. All I wanted to do was lay down and sleep. Closing my eyes was very pleasurable. It was hot as hell in this goddamn place though. So I got up to get some horchata from a nearby restaurant. I immediately felt faint. By the time I got outside to the sidewalk, I was forced to sit down because my vision had gone fuzzy and black. I felt like I was going to faint. I tried to puke, but didn't want to stick my hand down my throat in front of people. By 2, I had walked past the restaurant into the alley behind. I found a shaded area, lied down, and tried to puke, but I couldn't. I stayed like that for about 10 minutes before getting up slowly. I stood there for another few minutes before I started walking back to the restaurant. When I walked into the restaurant, I was white as a sheet and sweating profusely. I had to lie down on the bench for a sec before eventually gathering the strength to order a drink. My mouth was dry, my eyes were blurry. I felt as if I was going to faint, and I was having tremors in my feet and hands. After I got home, I spent the rest of the time trying to sleep, but to no avail. This felt like a delirium, but with no plus side. Around 3:30, I finished laundry and spent the rest of the day sipping water and trying to stay cool. I kept checking my temperature, but could hardly keep my eyes open. I went back and forth from trying to keep my eyes open to sleeping for 10 minutes. I couldn't stay awake for more than 5 minutes at most. An hour and a half later, I started to come down and felt a little better. By 6, I was feeling a lot better. I had stopped shaking so much and was no longer slurring my words. But I was still really tired and definitely disappointed that I didn't take the time to think about how stupid I was to try this and how I should have been more careful. Looking back, this was definitely psychoactive and might be more enjoyable at a lower dose and in a better setting. So Olanzapine. I'm guessing a lot of you are wondering, what the hell is it exactly? Well, to start off, I want to say that this is a much more complex substance compared to what we normally cover. Let's start off by establishing that this is a phenobenzodiazepine, and what is that? Well, you might hear benzodiazepine in there, which is true of these substances. They act in a very similar way compared to benzos like Xanax or K-pins. They both react on the benzo receptor site the same, so commonly people will claim that the effects experienced are the same. But that's just the first part for olanzapine, because the substance starts off as a phenobenzodiazepine, but it builds off of that, introducing mainly antipsychotic and anti-nausea properties. While with benzos, you most commonly hear of people getting them prescribed for anxiety-related issues. With olanzapine, it's going to be more commonly prescribed for either schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. While it will still provide similar feelings of sedation, if not more, it has shown to be effective in helping reduce symptoms like unwanted or depressive thoughts and feelings. For example, for those with bipolar, when they end up having a manic or depressive episode, the effectiveness of treatment is on par with one of the more common medications, lithium. Olanzapine seems to play a role on serotonin and dopamine as well, acting mainly as antagonists for both. Because of this, it's expected that this plays a role in the antidepressive effects, but also offers relief brought on by involuntary movements and the anti-nausea, which, speaking of the anti-nausea, olanzapine has been used before to help aid those in chemotherapy with their nausea, and this may also be due to olanzapine's role on the histamine receptors. But on top of binding to serotonin, dopamine, and histamine, olanzapine also affects muscarinic receptors. This may be responsible for effects such as dry mouth, but I mainly want to point this out because it is thought to be responsible for causing diabetes over the long term. And speaking of diabetes, let's bring up more of the potential adverse effects of this substance. While it can help as an antipsychotic, there has been many potential risks involved with olanzapine, especially with long-term use. But as we can see from the report we just covered, short-term use, especially in high doses, can lead to extreme tiredness, dizziness, and can completely disable a person from normal functioning. Beyond that, especially in overdoses, it has shown to play a role on the heart, inducing tachycardia. It also has shown to reduce the effectiveness in glucose, so particularly for those at risk, this is something else to look out for. Over long term, olanzapine can cause potential liver problems, as it is metabolized there. Olanzapine also has a notable effect of increasing one's hunger, and for some individuals, this effect has shown to be very strong. And also, of course, there is a risk when it comes to combinations. Depressants, especially alcohol, should be avoided as it could increase the chances of overdose much more. But also, a unique study found that cigarette smokers may be at risk when taking olanzapine. It has been found smokers will excrete the substance at a much higher rate. Because of this, changing smoking habits while on olanzapine can lead to many adverse effects, as this would affect the concentration of it in the body. But I think we'll end it there today. I just kind of went all over with this, because this substance is kind of all over in itself. It seems it can provide a lot of help, but not without a lot of risk. As in terms of recreational effects, they may be there, but I imagine jumping into a high dose isn't going to be the best route. And because of the wide effects of this substance, it's hard to say how this substance will affect an individual. There's still a lot more to learn about this substance as well. For example, it isn't known exactly how relief is provided for those with schizophrenia. We just know it can potentially provide it. But if you want to hear more on olanzapine or any other substances as well, let me know in the comments below and we can do that. If you did like this video, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, follow the socials. It's been Someone That's No One, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.